EngListen. Real English, real conversations.
Raphael, before we get into anything deeper, can I ask, how would you describe your inner world? Not your daily routine or job, but what actually happens in your mind when you're alone, when there's silence.
That's an interesting way to start. Well, it's like my brain never shuts up. I can spend hours thinking through a situation, replaying conversations, imagining different outcomes, asking what if 1,000 times. Sometimes it feels like I'm carrying a whole library of thoughts in my head, constantly indexing and cross-referencing. It can be overwhelming. I envy people who just act. I overthink everything.
That's not unusual for introverts. In fact, there's growing neuroscience backing what you're describing. Introverts often show higher activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with complex planning, long-term decision-making, and self-reflection. You're not broken, Raphael. You're processing the world deeply, not just reacting to it. That's a strength. Your mind builds meaning, not noise. And that makes you incredibly valuable in ways that extroverted fast-reaction thinkers can't replicate.
But isn't overthinking a problem? It paralyzes me. Sometimes I get stuck in endless thought loops and can't decide anything.
That's the shadow side of a gift. Deep thinking becomes a weakness only when it turns into rumination, when you replay things not to understand, but to worry or self-blame. But when channeled intentionally, this trait gives you immense power. Think about professions where pattern recognition, systems thinking, and long-term vision matter: architecture, philosophy, programming, even strategic leadership. Introverts often thrive there because they see what others miss.
So you're saying I'm not too slow, I just process differently?
Exactly. Our society often rewards speed over depth, but some of the most impactful people in history were deep thinkers. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Rosa Parks, even J.K. Rowling. They weren't loud, but their ideas echoed louder than words ever could. Raphael, have you ever been in a group, silent most of the time, but then noticed something? Maybe a small gesture, an off-tone word, a glance that no one else picked up? Like someone's mood or that something felt off even when no one said it.
Yes, all the time actually. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching a movie in slow motion, seeing people's micro expressions, noticing who's not talking, who's uncomfortable, and it's strange because I often stay quiet, but I feel like I know what everyone in the room is actually feeling. It's intense, like I can feel what others don't say.
That's not strange, Raphael. That's hyper-observation. And it's one of the most powerful introvert traits. Psychological studies show that introverts process more information per second when observing social interactions. You may not speak much, but your brain is actively decoding emotions, intentions, dynamics, subtleties that extroverts may overlook. You're not passive, you're absorbing.
But doesn't that just make me awkward? I notice things, but I rarely know what to do with that information.
That's because society doesn't train us to trust quiet intelligence. But think about professions that rely on this superpower: psychologists, filmmakers, detectives, even great writers and negotiators. They don't speak first, they read first. Introverts like you notice the cracks in people's masks. You sense patterns. You catch shifts in energy. You may not always act on it, but you could. And that's where your power lies.
I always thought something was wrong with me, for being the quiet one in a loud world. But now I wonder if silence can be tactical.
Absolutely. Silence isn't absence, it's awareness. In leadership, therapy, intelligence work, even in relationships, the ones who watch and understand before they speak often hold more influence than they appear to. It's just that your influence is invisible until it isn't. Raphael, tell me honestly, has it ever felt like other people's pain becomes your own? Like you walk into a room and you feel the tension, the sadness, the frustration before anyone says a single word? Introverts often carry this invisible emotional radar. They don't just hear, they resonate. And neuroscience backs this up. Introverts show higher activity in regions of the brain linked to empathy and emotional processing. You're not just sensitive. You're deeply tuned to the emotional wavelengths of others.
It happens constantly, Juniper. Even in childhood, I remember noticing when someone felt out of place, or when a friend was hiding pain behind fake laughter. Sometimes I didn't even know what to say. I just feel this heaviness in my chest, like their sadness had found a home in me. And it's exhausting, to be honest. There are days I avoid people not because I dislike them, but because their emotions overwhelm me.
That's one of the paradoxes of being an introvert, especially one with high empathy. You feel more, so you retreat more. But here's what's powerful about that. You understand people in ways they don't even understand themselves. In therapy, coaching, storytelling, teaching, even diplomacy, this level of empathy is rare and invaluable. You're like an emotional mirror for others. You reflect their truth, sometimes before they even know it.
But it doesn't always feel like a gift. It feels like emotional labor that no one sees. I carry what others unload and they walk away lighter, while I'm left weighing their burdens with no one to offload to.
That's valid and dangerous if ignored. Empaths, especially introverted ones, are at higher risk of burnout, anxiety, and emotional fatigue. You must learn boundaries. Not emotional walls, but healthy filters. You can care without collapsing. You can understand without absorbing. Because when you learn to channel that empathy into art, into helping professions, into meaningful relationships, it stops being a burden. It becomes your superpower.
So, what you're saying is empathy isn't about saving everyone, it's about feeling deeply and choosing where to direct that feeling.
Exactly. Empathy without direction is like electricity without insulation. Powerful but dangerous. But with awareness and control, it's what makes introverts unforgettable in leadership, in healing roles, in creating emotionally truthful work. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to own the depth that's already inside you. Raphael, let's talk about something few people see but introverts live in, the inner world. Most people process life externally, talking, reacting, moving, but you absorb, then build something inside. It's like a parallel universe. Thoughts stretch further, connections run deeper, and imagination has no limits. That's why introverts often excel in fields requiring vision. Writing, architecture, music, philosophy, coding. They don't chase the world, they reimagine it.
That's exactly how I feel, Juniper. Even when I'm quiet for hours, I'm rarely blank. There's a storm of ideas spinning in my head narratives, visuals, patterns, what ifs. Sometimes I walk past a cafe and imagine entire conversations that never happened. Other times, I replay a 2-minute moment from 3 years ago, analyzing it, reinterpreting it, learning from it. People think I'm zoning out, but I'm zoning in. It's like the outside world is a stimulus, but the real reaction happens internally.
That's a profound description. This inner richness gives introverts a natural edge in creative disciplines. They can dive deep, sit with complexity, and produce work that has layers. Steve Wozniak built Apple's early hardware in quiet isolation. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter in cafes, withdrawn in her thoughts. They weren't chasing crowds, they were building worlds inside themselves.
But it can feel lonely too. There's this disconnect between what I feel inside and how little of it the world gets to see. Sometimes I have ideas I'm too afraid to express, afraid they won't be understood or that I won't explain them right, so they stay locked away. And that inner world, as rich as it is, starts feeling like a cage.
I understand. That's the danger when creativity stays unshared. But Raphael, what if the world needs your lens? Not everyone can think like you. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's potential energy. Platforms like writing, design, or even storytelling videos can become your voice without requiring you to perform. The goal isn't to come out of your shell, it's to build a doorway into it.
Instead of forcing myself to be someone else in public, I can just create something real and let it speak for me.
Exactly. That's where introverts shine. Not in noise, but in meaning. You don't need to dominate conversations to influence minds. You just need to shape your inner world into something others can connect with. Let's talk about leadership, Raphael. Most people assume leaders have to be loud, commanding, always in the spotlight. But the most transformative leaders are often the quiet ones, those who lead with thought, not volume. Introverts tend to observe before they act, listen more than they speak, and think long-term rather than chase quick wins. Their leadership is subtle, but sustainable. Even research backs it. Harvard studies show introverted managers get the best results from proactive teams.
That really challenges everything I grew up believing. I always thought I couldn't lead because I'm not charismatic in a conventional way. Group settings make me tense, speaking to crowds drains me, but when I'm alone, I can map out whole strategies, weigh pros and cons, see risks others miss. It's like I need silence to think clearly, and in that clarity, I feel powerful. Still, the idea of leading others makes me wonder, would they even listen to someone like me?
That's a fair doubt. But remember, charisma isn't always about volume. It's about presence. Introverts often lead by creating trust, by being calm when others panic, by listening deeply and speaking meaningfully. Think about Elon Musk. He's famously introverted, awkward in interviews even, but people follow him because of his vision, focus, and intensity, not because he's a great talker.
I've read about him. And actually, I admire how he doesn't try to fit in, he just builds. Maybe leadership doesn't have to mean managing people directly. Maybe it means influencing through action, through systems or ideas. If I can create something that moves people, I guess that's a kind of leadership too, right?
Absolutely. Some leaders command from the front, others build the road. Introverts often lead by designing frameworks, solving complex problems, or setting examples quietly. They're rarely seen shouting orders, but they're often behind the structure others rely on. And when introverts embrace that, when they stop trying to become someone else and lead in their own way, that's when they become unstoppable.
So the goal isn't to fight my nature, it's to align it with the right context. To stop trying to fix myself and start using what I already have, just more intentionally.
Exactly. Being introverted isn't a flaw, it's a lens, a way of seeing the world differently. And in a noisy world, sometimes the quietest voice carries the deepest truth. Before we finish, there's something I think we should clarify. Many people confuse introversion with social anxiety, but they're not the same. Introversion is a personality trait. It's about how your energy flows. You recharge alone, and too much socializing drains you. Social anxiety, on the other hand, is rooted in fear. It's the fear of judgment, embarrassment, or doing something wrong in front of others. Introverts enjoy solitude. People with social anxiety often crave connection, but fear it.
That's interesting. I've always thought maybe I had social anxiety. But now that I think about it, I don't really fear people judging me. I just get overwhelmed by too much noise, small talk, or surface-level interaction.
I prefer deep conversations. I don't avoid people because I'm scared, just because it drains me. Exactly. That distinction matters. An introvert might feel peaceful reading a book at home. Someone with social anxiety might feel relief avoiding a party, but also loneliness and guilt for missing it. It's about the why behind the behavior, and this difference also changes how we handle it. Introversion doesn't need to be fixed. Anxiety might need care, support, or therapy.
So being introverted is just how I'm wired. But if I ever felt panic, avoided people out of fear, or couldn't function in social settings, that would be different. I see it now, and honestly, it's a relief. I used to think something was wrong with me because I don't enjoy crowds or constant stimulation. But maybe I'm just introverted, not broken.
That's right, Raphael. Introversion is a valid, natural way of being. It only becomes a problem when we try to force ourselves into roles that don't match our energy. Knowing the difference between who you are and what you're afraid of, that's the real superpower.
Juniper, I've been wondering something lately. If I'm naturally introverted, does that mean there are some careers I should avoid? Sometimes I look around and feel like the world was designed for extroverts. Sales, networking, constant meetings. I don't want to hide from the world, but I also don't want to burn out trying to fit in. Are there actually jobs that fit someone like me, or is that just wishful thinking?
That's not wishful thinking, Raphael. It's reality. There's a growing body of research that shows introverts often thrive in specific roles. These are careers that allow deep focus, independent work, thoughtful problem solving, and creativity over constant stimulation. For example, writers, researchers, designers, programmers, therapists, architects, analysts, musicians, editors, all of these involve deep thinking, quiet environments, and space for reflection. They're not just jobs for shy people. They're high-impact, valuable careers.
That sounds comforting. I used to think success was only for the loudest voice in the room. But I've always loved solving problems quietly, thinking deeply, working alone, then presenting something powerful. But what about leadership? Doesn't that require being loud and charismatic?
That's a huge myth. Let me tell you about a study by Harvard Business School. They found that introverted leaders often outperform extroverted ones, especially when managing proactive teams. Why? Because introverts listen more. They give space for others to shine. They lead through servant leadership, calm, thoughtful, strategic. Think of leaders like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, or Barack Obama, not loud, but deeply effective.
I never saw it that way. It's like the world has only been showing one version of success this whole time. No one ever told us that calm minds could lead empires.
Exactly. And another powerful area? Creativity. Studies show that solitude enhances creative thinking. Introverts tend to make unexpected connections, dive deep into topics, and develop unique insights because they spend more time in their inner world. That's where innovation is born.
So all this time, the things I felt made me too quiet or too different might actually be my greatest strengths. I'm not lazy. I'm not unmotivated. I just function differently. And that's okay?
It's more than okay, it's powerful. Introverts are often the ones shaping the world behind the scenes, and once they understand their own rhythm, they can choose paths that align with it instead of fighting against it. In the next part, I can even tell you about some historical introverts who did exactly that. You know, Raphael, being an introvert is not a limitation. It's a different operating system, one that's deeply reflective, observant, and quietly powerful. The world often praises the loudest voice in the room, but history shows us it's often the quiet thinkers who change its direction.
I guess for a long time I thought being quiet meant being weak. But now I see it's just different wiring. And maybe I've been trying to fit into roles that never match my core strengths.
Exactly. The key is alignment. When introverts stop forcing themselves to be extroverts and instead embrace their analytical minds, empathy, and deep focus, they become unstoppable in the right environment.
It's not about changing who I am. It's about choosing paths where I don't need to pretend. That's freeing.
That's growth. And remember, some of the greatest minds, Einstein, Elon Musk, Rosa Parks, they weren't the loudest, but their impact echoed far. Your strengths aren't behind the curtain. They are the stage. You just need to walk on in your own way.
Maybe I've been powerful all along, just in a quieter frequency.
You see, Raphael, you don't have to become louder to be heard. Sometimes, the quietest voices carry the most depth. You're not behind. You're just walking a different path.
Maybe, for the first time, I'm okay with that. Maybe I can stop trying to fix what was never broken.
Exactly. Introversion isn't a flaw. It's a design. Learn to work with it, not against it. If you're an introvert watching this, drop a hit in the comments. Let's show the world that silence isn't emptiness. It's power.